What is going on, friends? We are back here at oddschecker.com/US, and it is the beginning of the 2023 golf season. I got a new friend. It's my guy, Andy Lack. We'll be doing these videos weekly here at oddschecker.com/US. Golf season, it's like sort of a soft launch out in Hawaii, but it fills the soul. Not all of us are in Palm Springs still getting rounds, and like my boy Andy, for some of us it gets dark before 5 p.m. and just the serene sights of Hawaii, it's better than chicken soup on the coldest day, watching a guy from those fairways in the beautiful setting. So let's get right into it. Andy, 2023, let's go.
Let's go, man. Geoff, it is an absolute pleasure to be joined by you week by week. I know that we've done at this point many podcasts together. Not a single podcast. Every single time I've brought you on my podcast, my viewers absolutely love it. So I'm excited to talk golf with you in absolutely any capacity. I assume we'll do like a quick little brief thing on the course first that I can start you out with, just so people know format wise, what we're going to be doing every week is I'll maybe do a little 5-minute intro on the course. And then Geoff and I will essentially start tackling the board. You know, these are supposed to be short form videos that we get out at a reasonable time on Monday morning or Monday early afternoon. That just gives our general thought process of the board. So before I get into the course, one last question I want to ask you, Geoff. Do you have any like betting New Year's resolutions in terms of golf? Was there anything that happened last year that made you think, okay, strategy wise, I'm going to go about things a little bit differently this year?
Nope. Last year, truthfully, just emboldened me in many ways. In that, and not to say like it's not a groundbreaking strategy to say good players win,
right?
But it just what the events of last year just emboldened me to, until otherwise, like I just will stick in my pocket. That will mainly, be 20 to 60 to 1. That might even be too wide, but I'm not afraid to go, in front of 15 either. But just stick with good players. Like stop wasting money on riffraff. You might miss one, it'll hurt, but I think in the long run, and we'll see, maybe the pendulum will swing back quickly this year. I'm not sure, but I doubt it, especially when this amount of good players show up to an event. Good players are going to win. And when I say that like 20 to 50 to 1, I mean, that's like talking about how we're going to bet Riviera. For an event like this, you almost got to attack it like you're trying to bet a first touchdown in an NFL game. There's a very finite group of players who can win. Maybe Andy will treat you to something down the board here. But no, bad news for everybody who wanted to see me change a stripe. I wish I won more last year based on the numbers that hit, like the winner's circle numbers, to be perfectly honest, Andy.
Right, and you had a bunch of runner-ups as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a lot of people did, but last year just emboldened me to see like good players just win golf tournaments. That's it, especially the important ones.
Right. Well put. Well, speaking of good players, that's exactly what we've got on our hands this week in Hawaii. Outside of the live players, including the defending champion Cameron Smith. Do you remember, Geoff? I was so shocked when I read this. Matt Jones shot a casual 32 under here last year and didn't even sniff the playoff.
Yes. And I mean, that's incredible. I sort of was reminded of that this morning when doing a show with Pat Mayo. And I would say the Matt Jones, John Rahm performances would win you 99% of golf tournaments last year. And I remember that came up, not to get too long-winded, when Finau didn't win in Mexico, I believe, to Rahm. Statistically, it was like he was a guy that like 99 times out of 100, that performance wins you that event. So I forgot about Matt Jones, but I was reminded this morning. And to that, as you get into the course, Andy, You got to flirt. If you don't think a guy's capable of 28 under, then just pick someone else, because conditions are supposed to be nice this week. We see them just annihilate this place. It's a beautiful no cut. Everyone gets paid little thing. They're gonna challenge that 30 under again. I have no doubts, unless weather gets crazy. But I
No, I 100% agree, and that's a good segue to briefly talking about the course. This is a par 73, the Plantation course at Capitol, measuring just under 7,600 yards, right? Which would make it the longest, maybe the second longest I'm trying to think, maybe one of the major venues usually fits in something a little bit longer, but it's an extremely long course. But because of the elevation changes and the undulation changes, you're going to see guys hit booming drives. I mean, driving distance here has been well above average. A lot of downhill tee shots, right? Like you're going to see guys hitting 340, 350 yard bombs, and the fairways, you could land a plane on them, right? The greens are absolutely massive. We're talking about a course that has over an 80% fairways hit percentage and over an 80% greens in regulation percent. I can't think of any other course that has even like come close to nearing those totals. So the only real pushback of the wind, and we've seen it sometimes, right? Like Justin Thomas in 2020 won at 14 under, right? Like that was a year when the wind really kicked up. But man, if we do not get any winds, I would say bombs away once again. Is that kind of what you're thinking in terms of like no weather, let's absolutely let it fly, find me the guy at the top of the board who you feel safest and most comfortable with getting absolutely hot with the putter?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is that you can pretty much pick your distance and play from it. I mean, this course in many ways will allow you to do that. Even the guys that don't hit it as long will be able to put it somewhere comfortable. Yeah, so that all adds up. We're as golf fans, we're very familiar with this course. We've been here a lot year after year. We know what to expect. So right to the top of the board, Andy, I'm going to split these guys up into a couple parts, because it does sort of feel like we've differentiated ourselves with Rahm on that OddsChecker grid coming in at 6 plus 650, followed by Scheffler at 10-1, Cantley 11, Thomas 12, and Xander 12. Those guys seem to have separated themselves even from some others under 20-1.
Even Finau is 14-1, and then you jump all the way up to 20 with Colin.
Yeah, so okay, we can include Finau in there, that's been dropping, because they're I saw some enhanced 17s or 18s out there earlier, but you are right. So it's a consensus 14. Let's include him in that. If I'm making a pick here, it comes from the very back. It's probably Finau or Schauffele. Not to say the other guys aren't perfect fits, but I would trust either of them almost as much. So if I do make a bet from this range, and I am staring at an enhanced 17 over at Bet365 on Finau, that would be the one that probably tickles me the most.
I'm with you. And I would say I probably prefer Xander a little bit more than Finau. The one guy that I would add into the mix that I'm heavily considering is Justin Thomas. I just feel like of the elite players, I mean, Justin Thomas's career arc over the past couple of years has been really strange. I mean, he went from being this guy who racked up 15 PGA Tour wins essentially before the age of 27 and was on a historic pace. And now what he's basically doing is winning one massive event per year, right? In 2021, he won the Players. That was his only win of the season. 2022, he won the PGA Championship. That was his only win of the season. I would expect that change. I would expect that to change a little bit this year. I think this is a perfect spot for JT. I love anytime JT is on a course where he has a ton of room to operate off the tee. And, you don't really think of this as an iron course, just because I think when most people think iron courses, they think, oh, like narrow fairways, like small greens, small targets, the Heritage, Colonial, those are all like, target golf iron courses. But think about if every single player in this field is going to be hitting the fairway, then it essentially just how you score on the hole completely turns into how you perform on your second shot. So I love Xander, who's had phenomenal history here. I like Finau as well, but I would still say for me, if I'm making a choice, it's between JT and Xander.
Yep. Makes total sense. And I do agree with you. I think JT adds trophies. Like this feels like a year where it's multiple trophies, maybe to accompany a big one, but it's not just going to be a big one. And this would be a good way to start. And I even saw some interview with him where he acknowledged, like, yeah, he can go do some silly like 4 or 5 win a year, although it's so hard. We'll talk about it all year long. Let's get into the next crack, where I seem to think the best value resides this week. I've made a couple bets in this range in front of 30 to 1. We'll start it off: Morikawa 20, Fitzpatrick 20, Hovland 20, Cam Young, Sung Jae 22. All of these on the OddsChecker grid. Sam Burns, Tom Kim coming in front of 30. I have bet on Victor Hovland this week at an enhanced 22, and I have bet on Sung Jae Im as well. Hovland, he did not perform very well here last year. He lost a lot of strokes around the green, but I mean, there's the easy narrative play. He doesn't win on mainland. This would be perfect to that. He's already won in Albany this year. But if any, like, he's a much improved chipper of the golf ball. So this isn't really a knock. And I believe he's going to go big game hunting all year long and win those events where chipping is required. But when chipping is irrelevant to who wins, and I get what I believe is arguably the fairest bet number to talent on the board, give me Victor Hovland 20 to 1 here this week for me. And I'll piggyback it with Sung Jae Im, who I believe is going to have a big year. If we're talking majors, which we're not, I believe the 50s on him to win some of them are as fair as they might be. I think the big year starts early for Sung Jae this week. I think the course fit is perfect for him as well. Sung Jae Im, Victor Hovland, tempted always by Morikawa, but I haven't been on that roulette wheel in a while. So yeah, that's where my money is, and I can make a third. Maybe it'll be shorter, maybe it'll be longer. What are your thoughts of these 20s?
Yeah, I mean, the two numbers that stood out to me the most, Geoff, I would say, is that I'm a little surprised that you can find a 35 to 1 on Zalatoris, right? Like you can find, I mean, he's going to have lower odds at the US Open, right? And the PGA Championship, don't you think? But I guess it's that injury, right? Do you have any interest in Zalatoris in like the mid 30s?
What I love, and talk to me the other way, because I did a show this morning with our my partner in crime, our friend Pat Mayo. I said the exact same thing and doing this discourse. There's a 35 on Will Zalatoris. And while the number might seem fair, and I don't think it's injury related because he's been hurt long enough and he's recovered, you could make the case that this is the like complete opposite
of
event where you want Will Zalatoris. His strengths are totally negated here. Like straight as an arrow, never making bogey. Is he going to win 30 under? So that is where, like, I was like, you know what? That's why we're doing this content on Monday. We got to talk through this stuff. I sort of talked myself out of that Zalatoris situation. The number does seem very fair. And if we want to talk fair numbers, 40 to 1 on Hideki Matsuyama,
right? That's
on that OddsChecker grid. A guy that once upon a time, I think, had 3 top 3s here without winning. If you believe in Hideki, this feels like a number that maybe you should be getting in on. It seems more than fair. And even that Max Homa at 35-1 off the baby swag proven winner. Anything here that you think you could be betting in this 20 to 40 range that we've sort of just dissected?
Yeah, it's tough because the way that I kind of limit my exposure and build my betting card, if I'm going with somebody at 12-1, that pretty much severely limits how much I can do farther down the board, right? So, I'm probably looking to have room to add one or two more guys in the 50 range. But I would say if forced to choose in this range, I would probably go with Sung Jae too, man. I mean, I think he's going to have a massive year. This is a guy that we kind of had pigeonholed as like this, Bermuda guy, Florida courses, right? Honda Classic, Bay Hill. Like, no, this guy's finished top 8 in his last 2 Masters. His game travels. He can win on short courses. He can win on long courses. He's an incredible driver of the ball. And he feels like when you consider the numbers, the safest bet in that like low 20 range. Let me ask you this question. If you had to choose between Cameron Young, Sam Burns, and Tom Kim, who would you choose out of that group?
No, maybe Cameron Young. I really like Cameron Young, but if you're asking me to bet Cameron Young and I can bet Sung Jae at the same number, I can essentially get an enhanced Victor at the same number. I love Cameron Young. I'm just gonna pivot. Maybe Burns, and I don't know. I don't want to say anything negative about Tom Kim, but I'm just not picking him this week. That doesn't mean I don't think he's the freaking man.
Yeah.
But Hovland and M have my money. I'm thinking about either maybe going to Matsuyama at 40. I could get really overexposed and maybe bet one of those higher Finau numbers. We shall see. But I promise you of a player I'm going to bet. I've mentioned him. You were talking. I mean, I'll just give you the wheel as we close out here, Andy. These are all good players. They're great players. And next week, a lot of these guys that are 50-1 are going to be the favorites when we go to Sony and got a full field. But I'm not betting on any of them to start my year. You mentioned you might piggyback your Justin Thomas pick with one or two of them. Who might that be?
Well, you know me, Geoff. I'm like you. I am a sucker for Adam Scott. He's probably the guy that I just will never give up on until he's essentially playing on the Champions Tour. He's had a lot of success at this tournament before, right? And I always keep going back to thinking, well, you're the guy that said that there's only 8 events on the PGA Tour schedule that matters. Well, guess what, Adam Scott? Now this is an elevated event with a freaking $20 million purse, right? Are you going to be able to get up for this one? So I would say there are a couple names in here. Just in terms of pricing, the one that feels the most off to me is that, well, I kind of understand it, Geoff, because I do not think this is a Corey Connors course, but we usually don't see Corey Connors behind Seamus Power and Brian Harman on the odds board, and now you can find him at 60-1. I still think that one of the big dogs is going to take it home. Like if you're asking me to choose, it's probably Seamus or Adam Scott. Only Seamus because his game really seems to elevate on easier courses. But I can't remove my eyes from that top of the board.
And that's just how I feel. There's too many really great players here. I don't see the winner circle escaping that entire group. I'm a sucker for Corey Connors. I'm a sucker for Adam Scott to the point where, I get made fun of on my other regular content piece for how often I bring them up. I don't know if either of them are I'm going to flirt with 30 under types though.
Right.
That's sort of, I love him. We're probably going to lose a lot of money on Corey Connors together this year, Andy. So if you're saying good players win, no moss at the top or no moss at that back, I don't disagree with you either. It does seem like Andy is going to be laying it down on Justin Thomas at that 12-1. For me, it is Hovland at 20 and Im at 22 on that OddsChecker grid. And speaking of the grid, you did mention Adam Scott, and I've been staring at it. There are 50, like, of all the players on the board, he is the one that I'm seeing the biggest discrepancy on. That's why we love to use the grid, because if you are betting on anybody, you want to take home the biggest numbers. I'm seeing 50 to 1. I'm seeing as low as 28 to 1 on Adam Scott this week. So the books don't really have a handle, it seems like, on what to make of Scott this week. And certainly if you're finally going to catch Adam Scott's first win since pre-pandemic, you want to take home the biggest number. I promise you, and cherish it. For Andy, I am Geoff Fienberg. We'll be back next week as the season gets into full swing at the Sony. We'll stay in Hawaii. Those serene sights for us in the Northeast will remain. Smash that like. We're out.